So, a few weeks ago, This Hour Has 88 Minutes podcast host and our guy, League of the North, was thrust out of his normal, quiet life when the salacious virtue addicts at Vice.ca published an article detailing his involvement with the Canadian dissident right. I'll leave an archive link in the description for those of you who want to watch in amazement as these sniveling morons bray on and on like donkeys in order to paint a nefarious picture of a family man, volunteer firefighter, and entrepreneur who had the audacity to stand up for the interests of his own people in 2018, also known as the current year plus 3. In short, we have a 30 paragraph article representing over 4 months of researching. 3 writers and 1 fellow white man to conduct said research, all to publish an article via their website with 400 times greater reach than the This Hour Has 88 Minutes podcast, only to receive a total engagement reach of, 1,000 people or so? If I had to guess, I would say that's a quarter of what 88's listenership was. By any metric, this article should be seen as an astounding failure. So why, weeks later, did Vice waste so much money, time, and resources on yet another doxing article, but this time about 88 Minutes' other host, Axe in the Deep? Well, in this video, we will take a look at the phenomenon of the Fourth Estate releasing the information of private citizens in an attempt to terrorize them and destroy their lives, the ultimate ineffectiveness of such an act, and what I think dissidents such as these should do in response. Here's the thing. You're reading this Vice article about this awful Nazi. He's such a bad guy. We have a strong father who is the pillar of his community, contributes to it, pays his taxes for it, volunteers to fight fires in it. This is the type of person Vice wants you to hate? Whatever he says online, his opinions are, as far as I'm concerned, as irrelevant as mine, considering my 35 subscribers. By the grace of Google removing all results for the podcast's host, therightstuff.biz, from their search engine, the only people exposed to those opinions, really, were those who actively sought it out. And the neurotic, obsessed soy boy so-called journalists who aim to become the moral police when it comes to the acceptable range of opinion in this country. Then again, as the saying goes, if you're taking flack, then you're over the target. League's views, my views, the views of many in the dissident right, are the same views that many Canadians share today. Not in the same hilarious, harsh language, sure, but I would argue most Canadians hold these views, but they've been denied the ability to articulate these ideas, to express them succinctly, and to perpetuate them. And this is precisely why they attacked League of the North, and this is why they went after the funny alt-right meme podcast. Because it wasn't just the funny alt-right meme podcast. They were giving people the ability, language, and arguments to push back, to fight back, and to defend themselves from this insane swing leftwards that's happened in Canada for the last several decades. And when normies, NPCs, boomers, whatever, speak ill of political correctness, I think they mostly miss the mark. It's not just about prohibiting center-right conservatives from being center-right conservatives. Political correctness and PC culture as a whole is about removing the ability for our people to speak in the ways that This Hour Has 88 Minutes was able to. Bluntly, honestly, and effectively. So what did Vice do? Well, they admit that what they did was doxing, just not technically, goy. It was only doxing in a sense. You see, League chose to operate under a pseudonym because, as I mentioned earlier, the vindictive and antagonistic enforcement of political correctness by the self-proclaimed moral authority that is Vice seeks to restrain not just his, but everyone's ability to express normal, healthy, traditional views. The desire to have a community, to have a family, to go to church, to not have you or your children be exposed to the abnormal, harmful, and sickening things that Vice, for example, has on offer. And because Vice is completely aligned with the neoliberal coastal elite ideology that has been dubbed Globo Homo Gayplex, and has received $400 million from their owner, Disney. Yes, they're owned by Disney. They of course have money to waste on a useless endeavor like this. He wanted to remain anonymous, and, in a sense, Disney bankrolled an investigation into this guy. His crime? Having taboo opinions and expressing them on the internet. What did these misshapen Haunted Mansion cast members, bankrolled by their employers at Disney, hope to accomplish by unmasking someone who was literally harming nobody? Well, they wrote about his wife's job, which seems to have absolutely nothing to do with his views, his podcast, his side business, anything. When they reached out to his wife's work, how do you think the question was asked? Does Mrs. League work for you guys? Okay, thank you, just checking. Nah, I don't think so. I think it went more like, did you know that your employee is married to a literal crime and murder neo-Nazi like conditions and crime and murder down wants to gas pills babies, doesn't want his family to face her like Donald Trump? Based on my experience with journalists, it's probably the latter. Because that is how they've interacted with my former employers since I've become a dissident. They do this type of investigative work ahead of the release of their doxing articles to drum up local controversy and to attempt to ensure that the greatest possible harm can be done to the person. They also insinuate that he is unemployed and his wife is the breadwinner of the house, though I just think that's Vice admitting they couldn't figure out where the guy works. In fact, I'm almost certain of it. Then again, doesn't Vice support progressive families where the wife can hypothetically be the breadwinner? Or do we just have no standards and no tangible view of morality and justice because the person we're dealing with has been unpersoned in our eyes? A man stripped of his right to respect and justice, and therefore no positive moral affirmation can possibly be applied to him. In light of League's article coming out, TRS Radio Network, therightstuff.biz, removed all episodes of 88 Minutes for the safety of any other guests and of the show's only other host, Axe in the Deep. Axe would soon find himself in the same position as League. Last Wednesday, Vice had published their article about him, making public his identity and attempting to cast his life into ruin. This article, though, is even less eventful, though in fact, much funnier. Just as League is a... Sorry, I had it written down just as League, but I realized as I say it fast, it sounds like Justice League. Yeah. Just as League is a highly respectable societal contributor, Axe is revealed to be an equally well-adjusted, normal person who happens to like Japanese cartoons. Axe has appeared to have attended several cosplay conventions and dressed the part. In his youthful attendance at these events, which, by the way, was 10 years ago, he would painstakingly assemble his costumes and participate in all the innocent revelry of the gathering, as you do. The piece makes obvious that the greatest fear of these writers, the hand-wringing borderline schizophrenics at Vice, is that normal people everywhere share our ideas. Look to Italy, where recent elections are turning the tide against mass immigration policy. Or look in Britain, where between the Brexit vote and protests about the arrest of Tommy Robinson show that people are rising up against the global homo overlords. Or even in Ontario, where the recent blowout victory for Doe Ford in Ontario shows that the average man and woman is fed up with the ultra-liberalized push of so-called progressivism. The writers at Vice and their paymasters are terrified of the awakening of European people in all nations, and they are lashing out violently in an impotent and useless attempt to stem the growing tide of national instinct from Western people. Axe's article, however, is only credited to 2 out of the 4 initial writers responsible for League's doxing article. I guess they were the 2 most creative Imagineers. Since they had next to nothing to work with, they had to use their tiny brains and large imaginations to write something legible, presumably before their deadline. However, with this tag here, I'm willing to wager one-man anti-white network showrunner Evan Balgord, a fellow white man himself, was heavily involved. More on all of these Mouseketeers later. So what's in the article? Well, Axe went to a few cosplay conventions, as I said earlier, 10 years ago. And one says my Smash Bros. Melee main man Roy from Fire Emblem. Roy is the best boy. Everybody knows that. Big deal. I've been to cons too. perhaps more in an inconvenient anime way instead of a cosplay way, but I've checked them out. And, what else is here? Let's see, okay, goes camping, okay, and he posted on a Zelda forum a couple years ago, okay. Woo, lad. I knew journalists had to work for clicks, but this is pathetic. So pathetic of a story, in fact, that Vice openly admits to harassing Axe's father for a comment, just to stretch out that word count. And I'm sure they asked for comment in the same way that Mrs. League's work was reached out to for comment. They also write that Axe didn't respond to several requests for comment for the story. We weren't able to determine what he does to fund his neo-Nazi activities, nor how he met his fellow 88 Minutes hosts. What he does to fund his neo-Nazi activities? Well, presumably nothing, since Axe is not a neo-Nazi, whatever that means. He is a Canadian political dissident that they are trying to smear as a neo-Nazi, whatever that means. Why? Because he thinks like a normal person, and his show has a funny little title that they're too autistic to take as a joke. But what's it to them, what Axe does to get his money? Would they publish that in the article too? Again, a private citizen who has opinions on the internet unmasked by pudgy Disney dweebs because he is, again, like League, a well-adjusted, normal person. Now, I'm sure you're beginning to see where I'm going with this. And for those of you already in the know, I know that you know that I know that you want me to get to the point. Okay, here goes. Disney employees like these, and journalists in general, are abusing the Fourth Estate to settle ideological scores. These people are the extrajudicial wing of the leftist progressive establishment. Media smearing is no new phenomenon. It's happened time and time again, but to dox a private citizen for the opinions he's espoused on the internet, the Lugenpresse would argue, a story like this is in the public interest. Yeah, well, with the highly limited reach of both of these articles, I doubt it. But again, any excuse like that is normie tier bullshit. You know why, I know why, we know why they do this. It's to harass and alienate someone out of their family and community. To use social shaming tactics, which, in a normal society, these would be the healthy instincts of people to purge undesirables in order to safeguard their communities. But now, fellow people use their dominance over media to get the villagers riled up with pitchforks and torches. They use these tactics to try and scare the families of these men and their employers away from them. They do this so when you search their name, this article about them is the first thing that comes up. Good, productive men, contributors to their communities, scrutinized and ostracized more harshly than convicted criminals. Well, you know what I think? Fuck them. As dissidents, we have to understand that the lying press will do this to us, no matter how nice we are, no matter how well we present, no matter how good our optics. Like I said before, if you're taking flack, you're over the target. They understand that social capital is a thing, and that humans are social creatures, ergo, they seek to remove social capital from you in order to ruin your life. They dox League, Axe, they might dox you, and I can almost guarantee that they're gonna dox me. They'll call you a Nazi, they'll call you a skinhead, they'll put a spooky swastika on a picture of you, whatever. But just understand that this is name-calling. That's all it is, just name-calling. And it becomes less effective the more they do it, and the more trivial the person they do it to. Vice did the deep dive on two normal guys because they expected League and Axe to have some dark, twisted secret. Fellow dissidents, allow me to be completely normie tier here, to go full NPC, but I'm going to call Sargon's Law on this. These journalists are projecting whatever degenerate secrets they have onto the subjects of their articles. But what do we do about this phenomenon? Well, there are a few routes. Primarily, keep in mind that these journalists have names, they have addresses, they have family, and they have their own deep, dark, dirty secrets. Now, it's a crackerjack fact that I'm all for treating people the way you want to be treated. For example, I want to live in a Eurocentric Canada as it was founded and intended. So I treat people as if they also wish to live in a society where everybody looks like them, acts like them, and gets along. So if I met someone that, say, went around unmasking private citizens, harassing their family for comment, and published private information about them online and in their neighborhood, but then later say that they didn't technically do it, it was only in a sense, I would definitely want to replicate that experience for them, since they like doing it to others. I just wonder, what kind of secrets do these people have? I sure hope none somehow make it out into the light of day in the next few weeks, months, or days. Take a look at Luke O'Brien. He's certainly the first, and definitely not the last. To those who are doxxed, I say carry on as usual. If you're following what I refer to as the dissident's golden rule, which is simply say what you mean and mean what you say, then you should have no problem nor shame in coming back into the fray as yourself and carrying on the fight on behalf of those who can't. Consider, for example, what happened to Mike and Sven from therightstuff.biz. Both were doxxed in the same week, both took a couple weeks break, then they roared back. Better than ever, 3 shows a week, a paywall, and now they're making a living off of the very thing these journalists thought would destroy them. Which leads me to my third point. For those of you worried about being doxxed, just keep in mind, when you separate a man from what he fears losing, he has nothing to lose and less to fear. I know this because I'm open and honest in my personal life about who I am. And once you truly understand and see who is on your side, who loves you unconditionally, who actually cares about you, you will also see who has conditions, who will go out of their way to make you their enemy, and who is willing to cut you out of their life because of your political views. In short, the ones not worth having around will show themselves out, and you'll be a lot better off for it. And to Martin Patriquin, Mac Lemarou, Alheli Picasso, Evan Balgord, and any other journalist or mustachioed idiot who may be lurking out there, waiting to pen your big expose about me or anyone else, we will carry on. Some with eloquent, verbose speeches, some with drunk karaoke, and yes, even some with their hand outstretched at a bad optics angle of 14 degrees. We will carry on, because it's fun, because we can take a joke, and because we're normal. You are the ones who push normality onto the fringes of society. We are pushing back. The sun is setting on you. Tomorrow belongs to us.
The stag in the forest runs free, but gather together to greet the storm. Tomorrow belongs to me. The branch of the linden is leafy and green. The Rhine gives its goat to the sea, but somewhere a glory awaits unseen. Tomorrow belongs to me. The babe in his cradle is closing his eyes. The blossom embraces the bee, but soon says a whisper, arise, arise, tomorrow belongs to me. Oh, fatherland, show us a sign, your children waited to see. The morning will come when the world is mine. Tomorrow belongs
trolling.